1990.
Okay, we're live. Welcome to our participants today. Welcome to our audience. Today we're going to be talking with Dan Lasota, an instructional designer at UAF eLearning, in this UAF eLearning Hangout on Air. We're going to be talking today about badging in education. But first I want to remind the viewers out there, anybody who may be watching, if you're watching us live, please enable and use the Q&A app and ask us questions. We can talk about badging at great length, but we'd really love to hear from you and answer your questions. So to join us, again, here's Mr. Dan Lasota, an instructional designer here at UAF eLearning. And with that, take it away, Dan.
Great. Well, this is a pretty broad topic, and so we could probably fill up a lot of time. But the talk today will be restricted to using badges as motivational tools in an online environment. So that's what we'll talk about. And Owen and I have been working with badges and courses at UAF for quite a while, as have other members of the design team. But some of the things we'll talk about today directly address badges and that use. But let me, badges have a rich history, and they perform a variety of functions. Here's some old knight emblems, and they serve the main purpose to identify you in the field of battle. I think they're particularly neat. Two other famous uses of badges. In the War of Roses, it's important to identify who's who on the field of battle, and that's one of the things that badges can communicate visually is identity or rank of office. They can also indicate achievement in particular after doing certain feats. So here we're looking at two merit badges, Citizenship of the Community and Citizenship of the Nation, two famous Boy Scout badges that every Eagle Scout has to attain. The interesting thing about these is they have particular criteria that one has to meet in order to get the achievement. And the visual representation of the community and the Liberty Bell convey meaning to others in the organization as to the rank of the achievement. Military has, like I mentioned before, but modern military keeps up that tradition of identity, which organization you belong to, and ranking in an office. There's other kinds of achievement, and here these were some badges that we use for a journalism class. And when we tried this, the graphics are a bit goofy, but the idea was that there was a built-in rank system. So one would start at a lower level, and using gaming mechanics like the motivation to get off of someone who, the more they communicate, the more they post and communicate with members in the class, they would get better and better badges. Their rank would go up from opinionated to profound. And I'm not sure someone actually would want to look like Albert Einstein in his sweater.
I thought that was Groucho Marx.
Well, they were lost at birth twins, actually. Same idea here. These are, to me, they're a little bit more visually appealing, but these were crudely aligned to the number of posts someone would make in a blog site in the classroom discussion. So you begin as the lowly chiseler, and we purposefully made that monk look like he hadn't had a shampoo for centuries. But then you work your way up to either poster or printer. I can't remember what was the penultimate badge there. But that was sort of mimicking the advances in industry, and that was for, again, that journalism class.
So these are actual images of badges that have been used in educational contexts?
Yes, actual classes that students earned credit for here at UAF. Here's a different kind of badge. These are a lot more visual, but these were used in a class that had they had a a bifurcated curriculum, so it was one of those courses where you got to choose which units you would go through, and it was meant for uh, community managers from a variety of places, and they studied different geological hazards that happen on the planet. And so someone who lives in a coastal town might be more interested in studying tsunami preparedness than, say, tornado preparedness. And so they would, after doing the assignments relating to developing a preparedness plan for tsunamis in a coastal area, they would get the tsunami badge. And so those were awarded to different students, and not everyone in the class earned the same badge. Do you have anything? You look like you had something to say there, Owen.
No, I just think that these visually I like these a lot. They have a lot of color and they have some clear meaning, and they're communicating a lot.
Yeah, I think myself, I think the best badges are they have just enough information, and I'll borrow from my would-be minimalism philosophy. They should be simple enough that they look good at different resolutions and they convey enough meaning, but they're not overly simplistic. There's a lot of badging imagery you can get there that, like the thumbs up. Well, what does that even mean? It becomes an empty badge. And so, people who are really motivated by visual elements, you want to spend some time at least putting some thoughts into the design. Um, This is a quote, and I grabbed this from your slide. And people can read it enough, but do you want to say anything about the context of it?
Well, yeah, the context here is that Napoleon famously, basically, he sent his soldiers, asked the world of his soldiers, literally by the hundreds of thousands, to die for him. And his somewhat of a sarcastic comment was, what do people die for? They die for the idea, they die for the idealism, but really the little baubles, the little pieces of metal with ribbon on them, convey so much meaning and prestige that with enough medals, he felt that it was sort of the carrot that he could offer soldiers to do these incredible things. So it gives you, while some people are skeptical about their utility in education, there is something about awards, physical, tangible awards, even if they have almost no intrinsic value, the representational value can be pretty potent. So that was where that comes from.
I'll talk about that a little bit later. It's why badges can motivate people, but in some, there's like a little bit of an OCD nature of like just knowing there is a badge to get, and I just have to do this one extra little thing, and that's all I need to do. Okay, I'm going to do that. Instead of having a chapter reading and optionally read these 5 articles and comment on them, I can do that, and then I get a little recognition. So ask yourself, are you trying to motivate your students to do that, to read those extra 5 articles and get that extra badge? Or, how much time does it take to do that? Is it wise? How repeatable is that? These are all things you have to think about in the design of a course.
Once we're willing to open the door to using some extrinsic motivating tools, once we decide, well, maybe the content itself, learning mastery, there isn't enough intrinsic reward in it for our students. Once we engage with some intrinsic or some extrinsic options there to say, hey, what about if I start giving you grades or extra credit points or blue stickers on a chart or yellow ribbons or whatever, then a whole host of options becomes available. So.
Right, and there's that line of thinking can be thought of from many, many different ways, and there's you can use the motivation of basically tricking students into getting past whatever they view as a burden into getting into the fun. And I'm going to jump a few slides here ahead. This is from a game I used to play, and it'd be analogous to running through course content, and you see it. You get an acceptable, satisfactory grade the first time. But if you really want to encourage some deep learning, and in this case, gameplay with advanced or arcane ways to play it. Crass menagerie, kill one of each uncommon infected. So I could go through a level really quickly. but to really deeply understand that level, I have to get all of the different types of infected. So let's say that we're reading some Shakespeare, and take any one of the plays and write write the perspective of um, of Romeo. Well, okay, I can do that, and that's satisfactory. But how about put your place? Examine the perspective of another. So replaying the play or replaying the content from widely different perspectives. Maybe you have your students earn a badge if they analyze and watch different films or plays from different adaptations of the same play, and you're basically getting them to go through, and there would be some deeper learning there. The question as an instructor or designer is, uh, what does it take to actually motivate them, and the economy of building a badging system and a motivational system to get them to do something.
It's pretty interesting to me thinking about, the game example you just showed. I mean, obviously, a game like that can be played to the end or to win. But in that example, they're identifying all these other opportunities for achievement that might not be core to, achieving within the game itself. They may be just like kill 200. One of them was a head something or other, headhunter or head honcho. It was kill 200 of this one kind of thing. Like some people may have done that, but once you see, oh, that opportunity is available, I'll get a reward for that. Some people will just seek that out, but just to do it. And as you mentioned, within a course, this gives a lot of opportunity for other types of recognition and engagement.
Right. That kind of I'm looking at that screen right now. Decapitate 200 or so. That kind of mechanic might not be as applicable to reading reviews, but it might just a raw numeric achievement like that might have some value in a discussion board. Recognizing, a typical assignment would be, read something and then comment on at least three of your students' peers' comments. Well, what about the person who really takes the time to engage with every one of their peers? They may or may not be motivated to do that on their own. We'd like to think that there's enough discussion and people are bringing forward enough in the class that it does actually motivate discussion. But what if someone who really doesn't care about it, but they're just on the edge, and some little gaming mechanic or a badging recognition is enough to motivate them to, like, really, I just have to comment 10 more times and I'll be recognized in such a way? To me, that's okay. If you want to do that and you can get that person to perform an activity, then great.
Or maybe
recognize what they did.
Or maybe they get recognized for, commenting on their peers' posts on a Friday night or Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, or, just...
Or a time period like as soon. Don't let it wait 3 days,
Right, exactly, yeah.
And some of these things you have to exist. I mean, we don't have the time to design a game. I mean, you could, going back to the discussion thing, you could say, how about beating a dead horse, like commenting on a post from 3 weeks ago,
right.
Or being the first. Is that really important? But and we don't. If we're working in a Blackboard shell, we don't have that ability to, or really any of our shells to dig into the metrics of the discussion board and make those things happen. But it's kind of fun to think about. Let me, since we're talking about in the online realm, a digital badge is different than one you'd pin on your chest. It has these 3 elements. There's got to be some sort of visual communication in the form of a graphic, and I mentioned it's nice for them to be able to scale to different sizes and display in different color environments even. Even thinking about printing or, putting on a brochure or something like that. But because they're digital elements, they also contain the opportunity to have within them, for someone especially outside of the organization, either the class or the institution, it might be someone looking at a student's resume and it's like, okay, they've got this tsunami badge. I know what a tsunami looks like, but what did they do? So within that particular badge, there would be a link to the student's online portfolio, maybe their final tsunami preparedness project. And so the criteria could be, um, here was the assignment, this is what they had to do, and this is what they actually did, and that's wrapped up into that second element there. And then the third is the credentialing authority. Is it the instructor? Is it the school of education? You know, you've got a degree in elementary ed with a specialty in X, and this is the badge, and here's about the school of ed. And you could have links to your faculty and philosophy of education and so forth. So all of those things that can all be put inside of a digital badge. And then finally, I think I wanted to show this. I think, I mean, we're already there. It may not be exactly easy, but we're getting to a point where people can accumulate digital recognition from a number of places. And this was a screenshot, I think it's mine, of things that I had accumulated during one summer. So we had recognized and made awards to people who had followed an Arctic expedition and participated in a statewide workshop, or had done a particular thing at a conference to help people out. So all of these things were awarded by, it looks like mostly e-learning at the time, but I had to meet different criteria. And so this collection exists somewhere, and that always follows me around, and I can share these things out. So let me see. There's a couple other things I wanted to mention. Um,
I might cut in with a question if that's okay.
yeah, please.
And if you've got other things you want to touch
Yeah,
on.
just a couple other things, but yeah.
Okay. I was just going to, at some point, it'd be interesting to talk about when badging systems fail. Like, we've talked about, here's some examples of digital badging, what elements they need to succeed. Maybe we could talk about when they fail. But if you've got other things first, that's fine.
Oh, my first thought about that is that they probably fail when they're shallow and they're repeated a number of times. And what I mean by shallow is uh, going back to that zombie game or some like World of Warcraft. There's a lot of game designers who spend a lot of time making all those things. That's not shallow. It's very rich. It addresses a number of play styles or potentially learning styles. And so there's something there for everyone. With what's existing in, basically off the shelf, like course tools, it can be kind of shallow to just recognize, the number of posts someone makes. And so, especially if you're going to repeat a course or repeat a unit, it's like that just becomes the recognition of a number of posts you made. I think that would fail in the sense that it stops motivating people. It just becomes background noise. I think another point of failure is when you try and do something quickly, so your visual element isn't there, or and then in the broader sense, if they're not well designed. I mean, as an instructor, you're trying to create the situation where a student will reach certain outcomes, will be able to do something by the end of the course. So anytime you do anything in a course, you have to ask yourself, crudely, is it helping that happen or not? Is it providing that opportunity? And so you can spend a lot of time in core into, like, believe me, you can spend a lot of time on visual design, but does it actually help the students learn? So if it doesn't do that, that would be a failure point too.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think staying focused, design focused on facilitating learning, that in education, that's what matters. At the same time, or in addition to that, we're dealing with a very delicate space of motivation, and we've all experienced the hey, you did your safety training, here's your certificate, or your human resources whatever thing that everybody dreads, and the certificate is almost an insult because you don't believe in the process to obtain it, you don't believe in the credential. So if that's something to bear in mind, is if if you're credentialing something that students resent doing, or they don't respect the process or the outcome, you fail before you've gotten going. So being very mindful and careful about that. Obviously in the zombie game example, you killed 200, whatever it was, with an axe or whatever. People are going to respect that. That's a real thing, and that's an achievement. Same with the communication and the bulletin boards. If students you're recognizing, hey, you posted 3 times before 6 a.m., you're an early riser or whatever, that's meaningful and kind of fun to share. If it's, hey, you got a C- on your exam, better luck next time, a badge for that maybe isn't going to be the best way to use badging.
Probably not. I mean, can you imagine as maybe a parent, I'm going to give my kids badges for cleaning up the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they still have to clean up the dishes, and they'll just resent you. In later years, they'll still hate you anyway. So, um, let's see. Oh, I did want to mention. I mean, we're kind of talking about instruction and being the professor and working with students, but there is another. Institutionally, we do have to worry about advertising our programs, reaching out to new students, and so forth. So badging can, if someone puts this on their portfolio that they attended a workshop or they got a special degree or credentialing from our institution, that's advertising that walks around. And especially being concerned of what the criteria it was to reach that, that's where that that's where the institution's name and reputation is on the line. So that's important, and especially a lot of things that happen in the university that aren't exactly classroom type stuff. So, um, workshops or non-academic credit courses or special credentialing programs this sort of thing might lend itself there. Okay, so that's it, right? No. um, there really is. It's really it can be a rich motivational tool, um, but it does take a bit of effort. I think someone who might be interested in this sort of thing, we can always show like the back end nitty gritty of like what it would take to put this in particular courses. Uh, it does remind me a little bit, Owen, of that English professor we saw in Anchorage who talked about gaming and mechanics, and she didn't do it all the way through the semester. She just used it as kind of a carrot the first time to
Mm-hmm.
engage the students right off, kind of get them going and create a little community, and then essentially that was it. Okay, we've done this little fun thing, and now we're going to do now we're going to yeah, I hope the content carries you through because that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the semester. That's one approach.
Right. I mean, you visually identified with the behaviors that you're hoping to see, and then you can leave that behind. You've already acknowledged that this is the way I want you to behave, but you don't need to give the level 10 attendance badge. You can say, yeah, you got it now. I care about attendance. I want you to be here on time, and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things about badging is the tremendous capacity or emerging capacity for automated badging systems. We mentioned sort of tangentially, some of these different characteristics that games are watching. For instance, all the different behaviors that players are performing, whether it's counting numbers of types of kills or numbers of types of achievements. In these, computers are really, really good at the timing, all the metrics. They're good at measuring things. Whereas humans, if we have 26 kids in a class, we may not notice, who's the first student to arrive every day, or who's got their homework in every single time on time. But computers are really good at noticing that. But some of our systems still aren't as could be. So you and I, Dan, have talked several times about Blackboard and how it's unfortunate it doesn't monitor some of these different metrics, because badging could take advantage of some of those and let students know, hey, I know that you've gotten this quiz score every single time, or you've done all your assignments before the deadline, those kind of metrics it could be pretty efficient at. And I suspect down the road that's where educational badging will go, sort of this additional layer of observation and record keeping and notification.
Yeah, right now the Blackboard, it does have a badging module, but it's tied to individual assessment work. And so when you combine that with, you know, student confidentiality and issues, you're boiled down something that is meant to be communicated, which you'd have to go through a bunch of hoops to, ethically use it in that sense. So it's sort of a two-legged stool.
Yeah, we would love to work with a faculty member and design either a faculty member or a program and design a robust badging system within Blackboard or without. There is a lot of potential still, and some of the projects we've done have used manually assigned badges where instructors go ahead and are observing the different types of behaviors they want to give rewards for, and just manually administering badges, and that's always an option. In the meantime, we're hoping the systems improve a little bit to give some better automated badging options.
Oh, why don't you just get on that grant, Owen, so we can programmer to make a WordPress or Blackboard module, or we'll create our own LMS. We'll call it badging LMS or something.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about. We talked a little bit about why badging systems don't work. Where they go wrong, and maybe it'd be interesting to talk a little about what types of behaviors badging might be best at addressing, and just acknowledge the fact straight out that this kind of tool isn't for everyone, but any tool you use that addresses even as 30% of your classroom better is a strength. So it may not, some people's criticism, well, some of my students aren't going to like that. Well, yeah, it's true, but some of them are going to like it, and it's going to work very well for some of them.
I think first off, in the beginning part of a class, when you're trying to go through coverage, and you want students to be able to be exposed to a particular number of things, the idea of like a visual progress bar, where you show all of the potential badges associated with activities you want people to do, and by the end of this module, you're going to have gotten all of these things. And once they perform something, they get a little recognition, little dopamine hit. I got a badge about something. I've read a chapter and answered the odd questions on the homework and submitted my assignment and so forth. What else am I supposed to do? Oh, I'm supposed to comment on some peers. And so you go through these particular activities, and it's a nice self-pacing thing. You could design a system like that, where the action, there's an immediate reinforcement, an immediate reward, and they get to see exactly what it is. And so that would work well with someone who needs that little bit of reinforcement, maybe at the beginning, and I think that would help out there. I mentioned the thing about engaging from different viewpoints. If you really want someone to try different things, if you're in a class and you have a project and you want them to try maybe an oral presentation versus a written presentation, or putting something to lyrics even, you can encourage different kinds of assessment or proof that they understand something, by putting them kind of in an explore mode and encouraging that. Sometimes that sort of motivation would work well.
Yeah, it seems that there's a range of opportunities to try and apply some sort of additional signifier. And teachers have been doing this for a really long time. It's not a particularly new thing. We all in grade school, or one time or another, there was a chart up with our names, and we got a orange star or gold star or red star, depending upon different types of behaviors the teacher was trying to reinforce. It's really this. I mean, there's some serious psychology going on behind badging that's very interesting, and that kind of gets back to the Napoleonic comment that it's amazing what these men will give and die for these little pieces of tin, basically shiny tin. But I wanted to mention to our viewing audience, if they're interested in experiencing badging for themselves, if you're familiar with Kahn Academy, and you can just Google that, Khan Academy, sign up for one of the math courses, a really easy math course or a hard course, depending upon where your level of skill is. And you'll notice right away that you get a badge just for signing up. You get a badge. The first time you get 5 questions right, you get a badge. You get a badge for being a quick responder. You know, if you're within 30 seconds for the first 4 or 5 that you respond to, you say, hey, you're really fast. So it's just monitoring all these types of behavior that they're trying to acknowledge and reinforce. And then you get another badge if you get 10 correct in a row, and 15, and so on. So you get the gold level badge for 15 in a row. And if you finish one entire category, you get a badge. And then if you finish 5, groups of categories, say fractions and multiplication and whatever, you get a badge for finishing 5, and so on.
So they're using the mechanics or the psychology of intermittent rewards and increasing levels of difficulty to encourage more and more deep learning or harder behavior to perform. When you go through those math modules, you don't get a badge every single time you answer 5 questions right. You're like, well, you're up to level 3. If you're interested in the level 4 badge, we can talk. You can maybe see me in my office and we'll figure something out.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, they keep sliding the bar a little higher just to let you know that, yeah, sure, okay, you've done that, but great. But here's the next harder thing to do, which is, that's how people want to play and learn. They want to advance and be recognized for their success. It's a little bit, in some ways, traditional assessment does students a disfavor by saying, yep, you got yet another weekly assignment in on time, check, as opposed to, hey, you've got 10 in a row, gold star check or whatever. It's this accumulation of recognition that badging can address.
Yeah.
Well, anything more other than, I'm sure you would concur that if any of our viewing audience is out there and would be interested in talking with us about badging in their course, we'd be very happy to work with them and come up with some strategies for some different reward opportunities or award opportunities for their students. We've worked a little bit with Rob Prince in the journalism department, and you worked with the lady with the
yeah, I have those 2 slides if you
course.
want to cut over there. This is a picture of Rob's course where the students, they started off as junior copy people, and then they became reporters and then editors and so forth. So there was a leveling and badging recognition of those advancements they made in the class. And we did talk about the geohazards class, and so that one studied all sorts of effects and gave recognition for summative work toward the end based upon what they did their projects on.
That's great.
We've done that, and we can help other folks do that too in their classes if they want.
Okay. Well, I don't see any questions coming in from the viewing audience at this moment, so we can wrap up this Hangout on Air. But thanks, Dan, very much for your thoughts on badging today, and stay tuned to the UAF eLearning's event page for our next live broadcast. You can find it at iteachu.uaf.edu/events. That's iteachu, with the letter U, .uaf.edu/events. And that's probably where you found this one. So we look forward to seeing you next time, and thanks for coming.
Thanks for the help, Owen.
You bet. I'll stop the broadcast here.